Welcome to Podcastaway. Podcastaway is a show where every month a guest talks about the 9 pieces of electronic media that would get them through a genre fiction-inspired isolation situation. Media can include films, television shows and computer games, and the guests can also choose one book and one luxury item, as well as devising their own isolation situation. Through their choices, we get to know about them and their projects, where they've been in life, and where they want to go. You can find the full interview on Patreon and the short version wherever podcasts are found. Podcastaway is a Geek Nerd Podcasts production. You can find Geek Nerd Podcasts on Twitter @GeekNerdPod and on Patreon, patreon.com/geeknerd. Enjoy the show. Today's guest is Linda Castro. Hello Linda, how are you today?
Great, how are you?
I'm not too bad. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am the producer and co-host and social media maven, I guess, for Cage's Kiss, the ultimate Nicolas Cage podcast. And I'm also this exact same thing for Bedknobs and Broomflicks, where we talk about witches in all sorts of media. We talk about like books, movies, games, television shows, although we haven't talked about a game yet, and I'm really looking forward to when we get the time to play through a game and talk about it. But we also talk about witches in history, and we talk about heroic animals and just plain awesome animals as our favorite familiars.
Are there any games that you've got your eye on that you think could be good for the podcast?
Definitely The Witcher. But I kind of want to read through the book series, and I think I'm waiting on my co-host to watch the series, but I love the series.
Toss a coin to your Witcher.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, at first I thought it had nothing to do with witches, but then I was like, Yennefer, yeah, okay, this is perfect.
She was so good in the TV show.
Oh God, yeah. I absolutely loved her, and like both versions of her, before and after magic.
Yeah.
So, and we don't just cover witches. I should say we cover witches, man witches, warlocks, any magic practitioners.
Man witches.
Yes, that's the preferred term.
Yeah. God, I'm hungry now. Oh damn.
I kind of am too.
Okay, right. Well, let's. We can't talk about witches all day, unfortunately. This isn't Bedknobs and Broomflicks. Do you know the rules of Podcastaway?
Yes, I do.
Fantastic. That helps. I'm going to record a nice big long intro with the rules in to stop me having to say them in every episode because I was getting so sick of telling everybody the rules. There are so many. I'm just the rule master. There are so many.
It's such a fun concept.
I've kind of borrowed something that's on UK radio, but it's very similar, but it's about music. And I just thought to myself, as someone that's not particularly into music, I just thought there are people out there such as myself that maybe respond a lot more to kind of electronic media as opposed to music. I mean, I like music as well, but I don't go out and pursue music. I go out and pursue TV, games, films. Yeah. There are some freaks like us out there. The amount of people I've said, yeah, I'm not really into music, they just look at me like I'm some kind of sociopath.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I mean, it would be a sad world without music, but at the same time, if you give me the option, I'm always going to choose like a television show or a movie.
Yeah, I mean, like I appreciate like a really good score in a film, something that really
Mm-hmm.
builds the atmosphere, and you think about things like Jaws, even the very simplistic and I can't remember the not E.T. but the other one. I can't remember.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
That's the one. Yeah, it's just a very simple bit of a few notes, but that makes all the difference. Right, let's start by talking about your isolation situation, which you've given me some of the points throughout it, but please walk us through it because I think it's a very well thought out, very well constructed, very genre fiction, which makes me very happy. Lay it upon us.
Well, I read the book series War with No Name And the first book is Morty. I think it's like Mort with E in the uh, parentheses. And it's such a fun concept that I had to do this. Basically, the animals, at least most, if not all, the animals and insects have grown in size and their brains have evolved. So they have basically the same intelligence as humans, and they have hands and they have guns now. And they are basically liberating themselves, and they are no longer our pets. And most pets are killing their owners, and humans are basically, and the only surviving ones are in hiding, and or they're being enslaved by the animals who have taken over. And I thought, well, if my cats or my dog would become evolved like that and kill me, what a cute and adorable way to die. So I could think of worse ways to go. So that's my isolation. I wanted to say that I would be hiding in a library because I love libraries. It's just the very look and feel and the smell of the books. I love it. But that would be cheating on the book front. So,
It would be cheating. I like people who can regulate themselves. That's fantastic.
so I guess I'd have to say I'm going to be hiding in like a Costco, some sort of warehouse where I have all the food I need, and I have a bed. I've got the basics, and I could take a shower, whatever. I'm good.
Yeah, and you've just like barricaded it shut. You're just in there by yourself,
Yes.
isolated. Perfect. That's great. With everybody else, they've been thinking to they've often said to me, "How do we eat? How do we sleep? How do?" Don't worry about the food's all there, the drinks all there, all the consoles and like Blu-ray players are there, the screens are there. Don't overthink it, okay?
We still have electricity.
Yeah, yeah. Even if it was like a desert island, I will get you electricity out to your desert island.
Functioning toilets.
Yeah, yeah, it's all there. So that's a good one. That's a good one. I really like that you've put thought into this as well. I'm really
Thank
pleased
you.
that everybody that's done this so far has given this like real thought about where do I want to spend potentially the rest of my natural life.
I've heard some great ones on here.
Everybody's doing well. I'm a proud father. Everybody's everybody's done me proud so far.
You should be.
Okay, right. Let's dive into it. You're going to talk about your 9 pieces of media you would bring to your abandoned barricaded Costco. And if you're listening to this on somewhere like iTunes and Spotify, you'll get the 6. And if you're listening on Patreon, you'll get the full 9.
So, to get the games out of the way, I work in the gaming industry, and I have for a couple years. I love games, but all being equal, I would rather choose movies and television shows to bring with me. That being said, it was still really hard to narrow this down, but, but I'm pretty happy with what I have. First of all, I have Night in the Woods because it makes me think of my younger years, my college years, and my high school years. And there's one character in there, Greg, who really reminds me of one of my best friends, Adrian, who's a co-host on Cage's Kiss. And I had to show him the character because while I was playing the game, I was thinking like, did they steal my story and my friends? Because it was all eerily familiar. And like, Greg was so Adrian, and Adrian creates well, he's a really talented artist, but his persona or fursona is a fox. He goes by Leo the Fox with his artwork, and Greg is a fox. And at one point, if you hang out with Greg during the game, he will want to play knives. So the object is to stab each other with knives in the hands until the other one gives up 3 times. The first person to give up 3 times is the loser. And I thought, what a stupid game that Adrian and I would play. Like, it just sounds so stupid that we would have to. I showed him that and he was like, oh my God, that is us. And even just the way they're at one point they say, oh yeah, crimes. And they talk about committing crimes, and I thought, like, that's very much us as well.
The best kind of guest is the one you don't have to answer, you don't have to ask any questions to. They will just go and go all by themselves. I had never heard of this game before.
Oh, it's really cute.
Yeah, I got your list ahead of time and I've been looking at YouTube videos. The art style is so, so beautiful. It is absolutely glorious. Even the palette as well. It's quite a kind of, from what I've seen, it's kind of a little bit of a washed out palette. It's less kind of primary colours, more kind of getting into like tertiary colours, more adult feel to it. Do you want to maybe just explain to really essentially what the game is before we continue talking about it? Because it wasn't on my radar, and there might be some other people who are kind of intrigued by what you've said about this game, playing knives against each other. Might think, that sounds like my kind of game.
Well, at first I didn't know about it until one of my friends was telling me about it because she was one of the backers on I believe Kickstarter.
I like Kickstarter.
Yes. She finds a lot of gems on there. In fact, she backed it to a point where they made a character for her.
Wow.
Yeah, she doesn't have a speaking role, but it's still really cool. And I know there was another game, Thimbleweed Park, where she got to have a recorded message. If you look in the phone book, you call her number and you get her on a message, which is really cool, and I'm really jealous. But with this game, I figured, okay, she's really proud of it, and she loves it, so I got to check it out. I checked it out, and at first, I thought, well, there's no real gameplay to this. It's more of a story, but I was getting a little frustrated, but then once I really got into it, I was into it. And that was it. I needed to keep playing until I finished it because it was so much. Like at first, there is a bit of world building involved, but it's more story based than it is game based. I mean, there's no like you're not solving puzzles, not jumping off of platforms and stuff. Well, except for the dream sequences or the nightmare sequences, but it's really story based. And that's one thing I really love about it because you get to choose. You get to make a lot of choices during the story. Like, you can hang out with a certain friend, and they're gonna become like your best rekindled friendship. But I should say it's based on this this cat. They're everybody's animals. And you are a cat named May, who's coming back from college, and it's kind of a mystery as to what happened, but you slowly unravel the story, and it sounds like she dropped out of college, and she went back to her hometown with her parents and her old high school friends. And she references an incident that at first you don't know what the heck happened. And a lot of it in the beginning and even in the middle is just about her coming home and rekindling her friendships and kind of just trying to find a sense of normalcy in her life. But of course, it's a game. There is no normalcy.
It sounds like there are a lot of kind of big ideas here. How does it make you? I mean, it doesn't sound like your traditional feel-good computer game. How does it make you feel when you play it?
I feel like it just kind of hits a little too close to home sometimes. That feeling of isolation, of being alone and not being able to open up and tell people this is how I'm feeling. I need help or I need support. And it's kind of, all about you as the main character, figuring your stuff out and trying to look inwards, but at the same time looking outwards and seeing like, hey, your friends haven't had a great time without you either, and they're going through their own stuff as well. And sometimes it's not all about you. So I felt that like on a really deep level, especially after college, just kind of I don't know, just kind of I don't know, reconnecting with my parents and being able to open up to the people that you love that love you, and being able to share with them. And so, I mean, I'm probably making it much more deep than it maybe than it's intended to be, but for me, it really hit home in a lot of ways.
Well, it's like any good art, isn't it? Everybody goes to the museum or the gallery and they look at that piece of art, and 100 different people have 100 different takeaways. And if you like the art, it
Totally.
doesn't particularly matter how there is no single intention. It's about whether you can appreciate it in any way. And it seems to have struck a chord with you in a very particular way. Why? I mean, you talked about it's, kind of darker tones. You talked about there's some kind of isolation in it. Why does it come down to the Costco with you? Why is it something you would potentially keep with you for the rest of your natural life?
I feel like it's coming with me to remind me that it's okay to not be okay. And it just reminds me of the good times with my friends. And it's I thought of a lot of other games and even like series choices, but then I thought, no, that would just be too depressing because it would just remind me of how alone I am. But but with this, I feel like it's it's kind of taking a look back and realizing, life isn't as dark as sometimes the way we think about it. And it's for her, I feel like the main story is about like, hey, yeah, she went through some personal stuff and she made mistakes, but also everybody makes mistakes. And she had friends, she had that support system. And I think I would want to remember my friends and remember what great times we've had together.
I think that's a really good reason. We should move on to number two, I think. What's your second choice?
My second choice is Oblivion from the Elder Scrolls.
Excellent choice. For anybody that's been living under a rock, maybe give us an insight into what Oblivion is and the Elder Scrolls.
Well, if you are familiar with Skyrim, you're pretty much familiar with Elder Scrolls. And to be honest, I do not recall what even the main theme was, the main storyline. I believe they were demons and you had to defeat them. But it was basically like most Elder Scroll games where it's like an RPG game where you can personalize your character, which I loved at first, and you get to basically, if you want to, you can just go on side quests, and I think that's what my friends and I mainly did. It wasn't like really about the main story. It was about those side quests where you can go on. You could decide if you wanted to be an assassin, you could be a thief, you could be a hero, or you could be a villain, whatever you wanted to do. And it's basically just fighting either with magic or with hand-to-hand combat, knives, like bows and arrows, whatever. I would say your basic RPG game, but it's not. I don't want to call it basic. It's just so much fun. I chose Oblivion because while I did enjoy Skyrim, and honestly I would rather play Skyrim again than Oblivion, but Oblivion has a special place in my heart because right after I graduated from college, I went kind of late. My my friends, my roommates and I, we all became addicted to the game. And I mean addicted. One of us would start playing in like 7 in the morning. The next one would take over in like the afternoon, and then another would play all through the night. And then somebody would wake up at like 6 in the morning, watch the other person play, and wait for their turn to play. So it was always on, always on. And we absolutely loved it. And we even came up with sort of our motto during the time. It was, but I was invisible. It's almost always like somebody would be using that sneak trait where you can become invisible for a short amount of time, but like it would go awry. But you can hear us always somebody screaming, but I was invisible. And we had so much fun, and it was just a blast, and it has a special place in my heart because I remember watching my roommates playing and them watching me play, and we just had a great time. I remember one of our roommates' friends tried saying, I don't like it because there's so much fighting involved and it's just so much violence. And we were like, but it's oh, you just don't get it. And we were trying to say like it's okay, yeah, but you're fighting bad guys. And it's different. And for us, I know a lot of us, we liked the sneaking traits and the Thieves Guild. We all wanted to be part of the Thieves Guild. And we'd always joke like we'd sneak around the house. And just recently, I didn't even know this was a possibility, but I purchased a lockpick training set.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and I told my brother all about it. I was like, "Oh my God, you can buy a lockpick trading set," and he's like, "Oh yeah, they have some really good ones out there." How did you know this and not tell me? But I was telling him I feel so great because now I can live out my Khajiit dreams. So now these days I'm once again sneaking around the house and practicing my lockpicking.
I think the reason I started doing Podcastaway is because like TV and film, gaming especially, gets such a bad rap from people. TV used to be
Totally.
called the idiot box and stuff like that. I've been finding out about everybody who's done this so far that TV has brought people together, or gaming has brought people together in their lives.
Definitely.
Whether it's, on the sofa, or whether it's, playing online, whether it's people gathering around to watch a film or a TV show. It makes me very happy to hear that it was actually something in your life, gaming, that was actually very communal, and it brought you and your friends together, and it was something you did together. I think that's really important because, like I said, gaming, particularly recently, I think Joe Biden made some really shocking comments about, gamers. And I love hearing these kind of positive stories.
Yeah, in fact, my two of my roommates were in our college. They led the gaming guild.
Oh,
Yeah, and they would play games of all types: board games, video games, role playing, D&D. And so it was pretty fantastic living with them and discovering all the games out there. And we had a lot of fun. And I used to be the president of this club called Toastmasters, where we practice giving speeches and we learn communication and leadership skills. And one of my speeches was about how movies and television can be just as good as a book. I hate to say it, but it's a controversial topic because a lot of people think that books are greater and the story is always better in the book. But I'm just trying to argue that, yeah, but with television and movies, you get different viewpoints. And with the actors, you get a different story. If they are a decent actor, you can get a different story and a different take on that story. And so I love movies and television shows, but besides all that, I don't know if you've seen the actual physical books for the Song of Ice and Fire series.
I have seen
Those
them, yeah.
suckers are thick.
Yeah, yeah.
So if I want
And
to
they
share
take
that
7 years
story,
between each one, new one
right?
coming out as well. So yeah,
Yes,
come
exactly.
on, George, we're
And
all waiting, mate. Come on.
exactly. And so if I want somebody to share that story with me, it is so much easier to say, check out the television show, or even just ignore the final season and you read that book. But, it's so much easier to tell them to watch this television show than it is to have them invest this long, long time in their lives to read the series. And I hated the Bran chapters, the Catelyn chapters, so I wanted to just skip those ones. So I figured, like, hey, movies and television. I mean, yeah, it's a controversial take, but sometimes they're better. They're better than the books.
I mean, we've all got that experience of seeing a particular film, either at home or at a cinema or something, and just everybody just watching it, and just collectively, that you can feel the emotion in the room. Most recently, probably Avengers Endgame for me. Let's bring it back to Oblivion quickly. Are you one of those people that when you play these kind of games, you're playing like you're sinking hundreds and hundreds of hours into it? And is that potentially one of the reasons it's coming into Costco with you? Because it's something that, in your darkest time, there is nothing but time. You can't go out and kind of, live your best life exactly. It's a world you can completely lose yourself in. You could walk, hours in one direction, hours in a different direction. It's just such a vast area.
Exactly. And there's so many things you can do, and you could spend hours and hours and hours without even making progress toward the main storyline. And I love that. I mean, first of all, you have a lot of gameplay ahead of you until you get tired of it, maybe. But then you switch back to Night in the Woods, which has multiple endings possible. So I'm gonna have something to keep me busy. And besides that, I really liked, because I when I first started playing, I was having for the first time in my life, I was overweight, and that was really it was hurting me psychologically and emotionally, because I had some eating disorders in my past, and so it was like a huge emotional burden for me to be going through this weight issue. But I played the Elder Scrolls, and you can personalize your character. And your character didn't have to be this skinny, sexy woman, with some games at that point, it was okay, you can be a white guy, or these five other white guys, or you can
All the
be,
options.
yes, exactly. Or you could be this one black man or this white woman, and who's hot as hell, and how is she fighting in that outfit? Nobody knows, but somehow her boobs don't pop out. Um but with this game, you can personalize your character, and it can look within, reason. It could look any way you wanted it to. You can even choose the skin tone, and you could choose the species, and I love that. I just loved being able to play someone other than that hot chick playing in a bikini or a thong. So it really meant a lot to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, thank you for sharing that part of your life. I've actually had similar experiences, but being underweight. I hear what you're saying, and I think it's interesting to be able to. It's all. I think it's all part of the escapism. You obviously, in life, you've obviously got to try and be, be happy with you, and that's a very long journey, and that does not come overnight. But there is, there's always gaming, there's always escapism, there's always creating something that you can, throw into this completely different world without people telling you all these things that they tell you in the real world about you every single day. Yeah, I've never really considered those kind of games in that way, but I think it's a very interesting point. Um, I think that might be actually a good time to move on to number three.
In my life, I have three passions in my life, and the first one being stories of all kind, all medium. Hearing, experiencing stories, and telling stories. I love it. And my second passion is for acting, and which I feel is just the ultimate way to experience storytelling, and to experience a story from a character's point of view, and to tell a story as well. And my dad is the one who basically inspired all of my passions in life. And storytelling was, and experiencing stories was definitely one of the first ones, because I remember growing up having him read stories to me, and spending time watching television shows and reruns of some of the shows that he loved and the movies that he loved. And every Sunday we would have a family outing to the movie theater. And so I can't really talk about stories with movies and television shows without talking about my dad. And he passed away, unfortunately, on April 22nd, and it was really, really hard for me because we were really, really close. But I'm a total daddy's girl, like through and through. And the my choice for number three was something that was really personal to me, because it's what I tried watching to try cheering myself up the day that he passed away, and that was Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Um, because this is one of the ones that he introduced me to, and it's just as near perfect a movie as you get in comedy. It's hilarious, and I don't care how old you are. It's always going to be funny. And the more you watch it, I feel the more little things you catch. Having watched it as a child, it was a totally different story watching it as an adult. And we covered it for Bedknobs and Broomflicks, because there are some witches there, and it has a famous scene where they're talking about they found a witch and they wanted to execute the witch, and she says, "I'm not a witch. I'm not a witch."
That is an amazing
So
accent, by the way. Great job.
oh God, yeah, not the best. But it's just so fantastic, and it's so hilarious. And on the day that my father passed, nothing was going to make me laugh. Nothing was going to make it better. But in a weird way, I feel like movies and television shows, some of them, it feels like something familiar. Like I can surround myself in a familiar story, and I get a sense of security out of it. And with Monty Python, it's something that anything Monty Python is just something I hold close to my heart. And the fact that my dad introduced me to it, and my dad introduced me to Monty Python everything, it will always hold a special place in my heart. And just recently, upon rewatching as an adult, when we covered it for Bedknobs and Broomflicks, I I didn't, as a child, I didn't really appreciate the whole scene with the the oppressed peasant who was talking about. He says, "Listen, strange women lying in ponds distributing sword is no basis for a system of government." So, I just love that. I love it so much. And you can't expect to wield supreme executive power just because some watery tart threw a sword at you. And I love it so much. And it's funny because they point out all the stupid things about some of the old stories that we take for granted, like the story of King Arthur and Lancelot. Like they take a look at it that's just like Yeah, some woman in a lake threw a sword at him and now he's the king. Come on. And they just point out the ridiculous of things that you don't really think about. And I absolutely love that. And I love the deadpan execution of some of the lines. And it's just some of the things that are easy to overlook that I love. And the whole conversation about, was it an African swallow or a European swallow? Just all of that. And it's one of those like very quotable movies, and it's always stuck with me, and it's my happy place. So I feel like that's coming with me because I'm gonna need to be cheered up. And so that's definitely made it to my list.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good choice. Firstly, I'm incredibly sorry for your loss, and it's again, this is a wonderful example of how, film, television, kind of electronic media brings people together, and there are memories, and there are kind of happy places that people can be exported to, and memories that TV shows and films can evoke. There's a TV show that my dad introduced me to when I was very young called it's a British sitcom. It's actually from the 1950s. He's not quite as old as that, but it's something that he introduced me to. It's called Hancock's Half Hour. Still have the audio CDs. I have all the DVDs. I listen to and watch it frequently, and that's kind of how things work. Things get passed on and passed on. Life of Brian is the one that gets all the press,
Yes.
as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned. It's the one. It's the sexy one that everybody's always talking about.
Yes.
For me, the Holy Grail has always been the superior film. Do you have any comments on that? I don't really know how to turn that into a question as such, but do you have any kind of reaction to that?
Well, I do love Life of Brian, and there's definitely a special place for that in my heart as well. But the Holy Grail was, I believe, was their first movie that they made, and to my understanding, it was hell to make it. They went through a lot, and they don't have very fond memories of making it. But what you get is this, just like I said, near perfect movie where even just the throwaway lines are hilarious. Like you were saying with the with a piece of art where you have 100 people looking at it and walking away with a different story. I feel like that with Holy Grail. Like there are things that you're going to miss, and upon rewatch, you'll be like, oh, right, I totally forgot about that. It's one of those things where I wouldn't change a thing about it. It's just amazing. I feel like it's really Monty Python on the top of their game.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, you can't really get any higher praise than that, can you? I wouldn't change anything about it, and it's them at the top of their game. Would you be interested in maybe selling Monty Python to people who are like, "What the fuck is Monty Python? It sounds super weird. I'm super into it. Tell me something about it."
Well, I feel like in many ways they were pioneers in comedy. It's kind of like Shakespeare in tragedy. There's he's told about any story you can boil down to something that Shakespeare told, or these days you can boil it down to something that The Simpsons covered. But with Monty Python, they covered so much. They covered comedy of like physical comedy, and I'm I'm thinking of the what is it? I'm trying to remember the name of the skit, but they walk funny.
Oh, the Ministry of Funny Walks.
Yes, that's it. And they played a lot with words and with politics and history and religion, and nothing was off limits for them. There were some sex jokes, but I feel like with them, they had a very witty and smart humor, but they also really got the dumb humor too. I feel like you can, like, no matter who you are, I feel like there's some joke for you with Monty Python in at least one of their episodes or movies. There's always going to be something that you find funny.
The thing about dumb humour is that you have to be incredibly smart to deliver dumb humour well.
Yes.
Everybody might look at that and might think, oh, but you have to be incredibly clever, and these people were.
I would be kicking myself if I didn't mention one of the funniest parts, of the parts that I find the funniest in Holy Grail, is when Lancelot is he gets the message that the prince is being held against his will in the castle and he's forced to marry, but he thinks it's a princess, and so he's gonna go in and rescue him or her, and you just see him running, and the guards are just standing there just looking off and like in the distance, like watching him approaching, and he's just running to them, and you hear this sort of music, and cut to the guards, and they're cool, they're calm, cut to him, and he's coming, and then he just like kills and attacks everybody on his way. No questions asked. He kicks the bride in the chest and works his way up to the prince, and then he finds out he's a prince, and he's like, wait, what? And the king says the king says, you only killed the bride's father, that's all. And he says, well, I really didn't mean to. And he says, didn't mean to, you put your sword right through his head. And his answer is, oh dear, is he all right? I that gets me every time, and just seeing their reactions, seeing Eric Idle as one of the guards to the prince, just smiling at him as he's sending out the message through an arrow. It's just, oh god, they were just masters, and just, you were right, like that timing is so genius. It's so important. And I remember after one of the plays that I was in, a trained actor told me that I had amazing timing, and that would, to me, was just such a compliment. It's one of the best compliments I feel like you can get, because it's not something that could really be trained. It's something that you just have to, either it's natural or you acquire it, and I feel like I acquired it through all these movies and shows that my dad had me watch.
Tell us more about your acting.
Oh, well, God, ever since I was a little kid, I remember telling my parents, like, I want to be an actress. And like I said, I feel like it's the ultimate way to experience a story and to tell a story. Because even if you're just a background character, you can bring something entirely new to your character and to the story, just with a glance and with your posturing. And I feel like it's I've always been interested in psychology, and I feel like it's, what a better way to examine someone, or if they're fictional, it doesn't matter, just examining a character from literally, stepping in their shoes. I guess it's not literally, but becoming that person. And I feel, honestly, and this is so dumb, I know, but pretentious, but I feel like if everybody could just act to a degree enough to see things from different perspectives, I think, honestly, the world would be a better place. That's another thing I felt like my dad taught me. He wasn't into acting, but my dad was like a diehard conservative Republican, and my mom was on the opposite side, Democrat, liberal. And growing up with them, I felt like it was the perfect experience to learn different personalities and how they deal with the world, and how just because somebody is different from you, it doesn't make them wrong in their minds, at least, and it doesn't make them a bad person. And it helped me see things from other perspectives. And I feel like it's really important, and just the way that you look at life. And yeah, it's pretentious way to say that. Experiencing different personalities and different characters.
I think a lot of the current problems in the world would be maybe not solved, that might be too strong, but if certain people could experience the life of somebody that they, you know, will spend their whole day, their whole week, their whole month hating, just to know that they are human beings, I think a lot of issues would be less heightened at the moment. I think there'd be a lot more understanding to go
Definitely.
around. And when you said literally their shoes, well, I think your shoes might become the character's shoes. So maybe you were kind of right.
Kind of.
We'll say you were
Kind of
right.
not really.
Let's crack on to number four.
Sure, sure. Well, I feel like I'd have to go on to another choice that's definitely connected to me with my dad, the Twilight Zone.
The Twilight Zone. Good choice. If you just give everyone just a little synopsis, who maybe's been living under a rock for 60, 50 years, I can't quite remember, give them a sense of what the Twilight Zone is.
Yeah, I guess it's been 60 years now, 61, yeah, ish. But it's kind of hard to summarize. There are a lot of science fiction stories, and even some scary stories that a lot of them, unfortunately, some of them had messages. A lot of them had messages, and sometimes, unfortunately, it was very laid on very thick and heavy-handed.
We'll get on to the 2019 reboot in a minute.
Yeah. But these were just stories that if you're a fan of any of the sci-fi writers like Philip K. Dick, I feel like it's a great show for you. It was another pioneer in at least in television and storytelling, where it gave you stories that you weren't necessarily used to seeing. A lot of like aliens and time traveling and life-changing moments, and it's kind of hard to summarize because they were all so different. But I feel like the best ones were the most powerful ones that had a surprise in there, a surprise ending, or just a surprise element that you weren't expecting, and especially not expecting watching television when it started in 1959.
Why do you think the show has remained part of the conversation for such a long time? Because it seems to be, it's just one of those things. If you know TV, you know of the Twilight Zone, you know the theme tune. People will use, oh, I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone or something. Why?
Yes.
Why has it stood the test of time? Do you think?
I think because it was shocking in a lot of ways, and some of the most powerful ones were they were definitely original and not something that, especially at the time, that you were expecting to see. I watched when I was a kid in the 80s. We didn't really watch the revival in the 80s, but I think we caught a couple of the episodes. But for me, a lot of them were parables and just kind of messages on how you should treat other people and how you should live your life. And like, basically, don't be a dick. And, be nice to other people, and live by the golden rule, and maybe you won't be put in this sort of hellscape.
Being abducted by aliens, do you think that was their going to hell kind of thing?
Well, I know they had a few stories with the hell theme, and then unfortunately they had some of the episodes with like there is a god and there are angels and some of the stuff that just seems really hokey. And there were definitely a lot of hokey episodes, but one of my favorite episodes, and I know that everybody knows it, even if you've never seen the episode, you know about it. It's Time Enough at Last.
How did I know you were going to pick Time Enough at Last?
Yeah, because I've felt this character Bemis so many times. It's Bridges Meredith being a bookworm, and can I swear on here?
Oh, please do. Yes.
Good.
It's encouraged, if anything.
Good. Because his wife is a bitch. She's just this like total cunt who's like, stop reading, and she's always giving him crap for always having his nose in a book. And she wants him to be a man and to provide, and he gets in trouble at work because he'd rather be reading than working. And I totally get that. I've been in that. Well, luckily I have not had the bitch wife. My husband's a very wonderful person, but I have had those moments in work where it's like, oh crap, I gotta put the book up. Here comes the boss. He's trying to sneak away so he can read on his break, and he works at a bank, so he goes to the bank vault to read his book, and a bomb drops and basically just decimates all living creatures and most buildings. But somehow he goes to the library, and the library the building itself is destroyed, but the books are just fine. And so finally he's so happy because there's time at last. And his glasses fall off, they slip off his face and break. It's where we get the famous scene of, it's not fair, there was time now. And I feel like it's such a great story because it's entertaining, and like most of the episodes of Twilight Zone, just amazing acting, a very strong cast, well written, and there's like a message in there about engaging with other people, engaging life and enjoying life. But it's not the best ones are the ones that don't hit you over the head with the message.
Yeah, totally agree with that.
It's just something that you don't see coming.
I think you used the word parables. I think that was probably the
Yeah.
best word you've used. Yeah, just like modern day parables. I was going to ask you a favourite episode. You've ticked that off. I was going to ask you what your Twilight Zone scenario would be, but I feel like it would be the exact same scenario.
Yeah,
So
probably.
that one's ticked off as well. The other question I've got for you, and this is, as I said earlier, we'll talk about the 2019 reboot after you said something like being hit over the head with it. Talk to me about the 2019 version if you've seen any of it.
I haven't yet. And I'm kind of afraid to. There are just some shows and some movies that I'm just afraid of watching because I'm afraid that they're going to well, I hate to be that fan, but I'm afraid that they're going to ruin it. And I mean, I love Jordan Peele. I really love some of his work, but I mean, Us I can basically do without. But I I trust him, but at the same time, I'm kind of happy just with the way that Twilight Zone is in my head, untouched. But I am eventually going to watch it. I'm gonna give in, but I haven't seen them yet.
I would say that there are two in particular. I won't name them. It'd be interesting to see what your thoughts were. But there are two where the message is so, like, I felt concussed after watching the episode. I thought there'd be like a dent in the
Yeah.
front of my skull where the message was being like
No.
hammered into me repeatedly. Two of
Oh
them. I'll
no.
see if you can guess which two. There are two episodes I must say that I actually quite enjoyed. Potentially three that I quite enjoyed, but it's just
Mm.
the balance is way off. And I think we watched episode 202 recently because obviously season 2 is now out. We actually specifically picked the Jordan Peele written one. Lex liked it. I'll say liked. It was just like any other TV show. It left me feeling so cold.
Oh.
And so I was deeply frustrated. But yeah, big Jordan Peele fan. I'm utterly cold from the reboot.
It's unfortunate because it feels like it's harder to come up with an original concept these days because it's like, well, Twilight Zone did it.
Yeah.
And even with us, I know that Peele said that he was inspired by one of the original Twilight Zone episodes. I think it was Mirror Image.
Is that the one where there's like a beautiful woman but she's a freak to everyone else?
No, I think that's Eye of the Beholder.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's a really good one
It is a
too.
good one. Yeah, I enjoy that one. Yeah.
It's a good movie, well acted, but I had some problems with it. I found some plot holes in there that I just couldn't get over. But with this episode, this woman is in she's in a bus stop, and she asks the employee there at the desk when the bus is expected to arrive, and he tells her that that's the third time she's asked. And she said, "Why? I haven't asked. I don't know what you're talking about." And like I don't want to give anything away, but the fact is that she keeps hearing about the things that she's done, and she does not recall.
Interesting. I think from what I know of us, I think I have a sense of where that might be going. So that's very interesting. It might be a good time to move on to number five.
Now, not having to deal with my father at all. There's Harry Potter, and if I had to narrow it down to one, I'd say The Deathly Hallows Part 2.
Interesting choice. Interesting choice. When did you first discover Harry Potter?
I was kind of late, but it was uh, early 2000s. My really good friend at the time, her mom was a librarian, and she was telling me all about this book, and I was like, "Ugh, it's a kid's book. Like, I don't, nah, I'm not, I don't have time to read a kid's book. Like, like I have no interest whatsoever. And the kid's a magician. Oh, come on." But she just kept telling me, no, 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 trust me on this. It's really good. So I figured, what the hell? And so I started reading it, and I was just like, God damn it, this is really good. And I loved the series, not only the book series but the movies, because it's a lot of world building, and it's just escapism at its best. You're taken to this magical world where magic is possible, and there are well fleshed out villains, and I love that. I love anything that can make you at least see a little bit from the villain's point of view, where they're coming from. I love that. Anything that can make you feel 1 ounce of sympathy for the villain. And I felt like this really did that. Not that I'm gonna be on on his side anytime soon, but they spent almost the entire series building Snape up as a villain, and he was just this bad guy, Professor Snape. And then eventually you find out that he has so much going on, and he wasn't a bad guy at all. In fact, he was a good guy. He was actually a hero. The Deathly Hallows Part 2 has my favorite moment in the entire series. It's flashback. Dumbledore is asking Snape, after all this time, And Snape says always. And he's talking about being in love and having that love for Harry's mom, Lily.
Yeah.
And we find out that this whole journey, Snape was in love with her, and Harry's dad was just he and his friends were just assholes to Snape growing up, going to Hogwarts, and they bullied him really bad. But he never gave up the ghost for Lily, and he was really, it didn't seem like it, but he was protecting Harry the whole time. And you find out that the Patronus that he thought his father sent out to save him was Snape's the whole time. And they go through his backstory and his version of the events, and I get stupid weepy every time. I get like ugly crying every single time I see it. And I absolutely love that you can have that moment of this person you thought was the villain, and at the same time you're just thinking, oh my god, poor Snape. And my heart breaks for him every single time. And I just pretend that this story just came out of nowhere. So there's no J.K. Rowling.
Once again, all my questions are answered. Yeah, I guess I was gonna lean into, J.K. Rowling. I mean, I've got to ask, how do you feel about her at the moment? And I mean, how do you feel about the fact that people are creating a lot of, Harry Potter fan fiction at the moment? Kind of with, very much leaning into the LGBT, and the fact that many of the actors, whether it's in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, whether it's in Harry Potter, the films, are basically saying she does not speak for me. How does that make you feel?
Well, of course it's upsetting, because she made something absolutely beautiful and stunning. I tried reading, what was it, the Casual Vacancy or whatever it was.
Yeah, another one.
I remember reading that thinking like, wait, this is the same person? What the hell happened? Because I feel like her adult stories are just, oh god, that makes it sound like porn.
There is a podcast called Potterotica. I wish I didn't know that, but I do.
That is amazing. I feel like the ones meant for a more adult audience they just don't have that. God, I hate saying this, and I'm kicking myself in the ass for saying it, but they don't have that magic. They don't have the world building. They don't have the tension. I feel like it's just, I don't know. At least I just read that one book of hers, and I was like, no, that's it. There's nothing outside of the Harry Potter universe that I'm interested in reading. I feel like she is a great example of why and how you should divorce an artist from their art sometimes. Like James Woods, very, very outspoken, just atrocious personality. Do I love his movies and acting? God, yes. but I'm not going to read his tweets. And sometimes it's best just to think of it that way. This Harry Potter is kind of, I feel like it's kind of out of her hands. She wrote it and she kept trying to add to it. Hermione should have ended up with Harry and blah blah blah.
And I forgot to tell you all, Dumbledore's gay.
Yes.
just dropping that in there.
Yes, and I honestly enough, like reading through it, the first time I thought like, oh, he is awfully close with this guy. And that's that. I thought he was gay, but I didn't need her to say it. And I didn't need her to say that, like, I should have put this and this and this in there, and by the way, this and this and this. And I know she tried saying that she wrote Hermione so she could have been played by a girl of color, but I'm thinking like, yeah, but you didn't say it, and you didn't tell them when they were making the movies, and so I feel like when especially with authors, I feel like once you've created whatever it is, then it's kind of to an extent it's out of your hands.
Yeah, it doesn't belong to you anymore.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I think I've got so many ways I want to respond to you. I mean, I think you can be two types of writer. You can be a Cormac McCarthy or you can be a Dan Brown, as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
One is a very, very high quality writer. One is a very, very high quality storyteller. J.K. Rowling is not a Cormac McCarthy, basically.
No,
That's what it all
no.
boils down to. And I think the fact that the audience, to begin with at least, and they got her the traction, the fact that her audience were children, I think has kind of earned her a lot of maybe a little bit more praise than she maybe should have got as a writer.
Yes.
And maybe that's kind of the difference or the issue translating to being kind of an adult fiction writer. I'm still thinking of Potterotica, sorry. But yeah, I just think when you write something, it's like if you love it, let it go, that kind of thing. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't belong to her anymore. And I just love the idea that people are just kind of trying to reclaim it in every possible way. I'm a big advocate of that.
Yes. Yes.
Talking about James Woods, I am a huge, well, I was a huge um, Kevin Spacey fan.
Yes. Yes.
Honestly, he was one of my favorite actors ever. American Beauty, particularly House of Cards as well. I've got a film called The Negotiator, kind of one of his lesser known things with Samuel L. Jackson. So good. I think he played a shrink in a film called Shrink or something. And one day I actually found out I possessed two copies of the film because I liked it so much and I wasn't aware. Just there's something incredibly powerful about the man's acting. But I have to admit, I have not watched anything since. And I'm at the point where I can't quite divorce the art from the person yet. I hope to in time because God, I loved House of Cards. And the fact I would have much rather they actually recasted him, Frank Underwood, because I want this story as it was to be told. You know, maybe Bryan Cranston comes in or something and plays Frank
God,
Underwood
how
for one.
perfect would that be?
I know, I know. Don't even get me started. My
Oh
heart is
God,
still
that's all I
broken.
want right now.
I know it's. I've had a lot of time to think about this, and it would be just so very perfect watching him, break the fourth wall. But yeah, it's a real shame. But I just hope people keep kind of reclaiming the Harry Potter world.
I feel like there are those artists out there who you just cannot divorce them from what they've done and their art, and like Bill Cosby, for instance, and which really sucks because growing up in the 80s watching the Cosby Show, he was like a father figure to me, and then to find out what a fucking monster he is, it's just like it was heartbreaking. And it also opened my eyes a lot, thinking like, well, if he was capable of doing this, then what are other people doing? And people that we thought were these good people, but also like I know Hitler was an artist, but I don't want to look at any of his goddamn art, because it's goddamn Hitler.
I love that you've gone
So
from Cosby to Hitler.
yeah, but both monsters in different ways. But there are some people that you can't look at anything they created without thinking, yeah, this was just a terrible person who created this.
Yeah, I think it's a very unfortunate thing that the President of the United States of America is a Bill Cosby type, it
God,
seems.
yes.
And what kind of messages does that? I mean, we can talk about everything that's ever happened with him as president, but let's specifically talk about that one message that's basically being sent around the world that you can admit to loving to kind of grab women by a certain area and you're still voted into.
I used to love debating with my dad.
I bet, yeah.
And everybody thought it was just, it was negative, but honestly, I loved it. My dad loved it, and that was our way to connect. And one of the things he tried telling me after Trump was elected, he was trying to tell me about Biden being creepy and Bill Clinton being creepy. I was like, no, 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 no. You don't get to talk about that anymore. You voted for a man who admitted to grabbing women by the pussy. You don't get to talk about other men being creepy. You lost that right. Sorry.
Joe Biden, I mean, there are levels, but I've often looked at him kind of sniffing women's hair, kind of leaning against them and thought,
Yeah.
what is wrong with you?
Yes.
What is wrong with you?
No, like, believe me, I am in the same camp.
He's the least worst option. It's that kind of thing.
Yes, that's exactly it. Unfortunately, here in these days, we kind of have to vote for the least of the two evils, and God, I hate it. We are ready for another option, but here we are.
Oh God, it'd be nice if I think he's gonna have a female VP. It'd be nice if he ran for one term and then tried to kind of help her become president. I was watching Colbert interview Jon Stewart a few weeks ago, and it was exactly basically what you've just said about kind of least worst options. And he said, "Well, I like this person, and as they dropped out, then I like that person. As they dropped out, then I like this person." And he kept talking,
Yeah.
and eventually said, "And then there was Biden."
Yes, and then there was Biden.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And we're just they keep playing off of our differences now, and just we keep dividing further and further, and it's unfortunate, but I have to admit that while I think Trump is just disgusting, a shitfire person, um I if Hillary Clinton was ever caught on video or on audio being recorded saying you gotta grab men by the balls, I think I'd be like, well, I kind of respect her more now. Like, yeah, grab him by the balls, Hillary. And I know it's total hypocrisy, but like, I kind of want to see the reverse of it. Not that I'm a Hillary supporter, but these days, I just feel like, well, hell, almost anything would be better than what we have currently.
Yeah. No, fair enough. One final question. I think there's a Harry Potter RPG coming out next year. You've talked about RPGs. You've talked about Harry Potter. Is that on your radar at all?
No, but now I'm just kind of, oh.
There have been rumours and whispers kind of in the ether for kind of several years, and apparently it's 2021.
There goes another chunk of my life. Right?
Yeah, there goes another 500 hours of my life.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I feel with Elder Scrolls, like hours of my life, just but well spent.
All right, I think that's a good time to move on to number six, if I've been keeping count.
Let's see. Ooh, I've got to move on to another movie. I've got Withnail I.
Now, this is a very special film to me, actually.
Really?
Yeah, give us a sense of what this film is, and yeah, I guess how it came across your radar.
So there are these two men living together. I believe it's set in, I want to say, the 60s, 70s. And um, they are just living in just a trash heap of a of an apartment, and they're just scraping by, don't have a lot of money. They're both trained actors, and there's a lot of booze drinking, and some drug use there too. And they decide they're freezing cold because they can't afford the heat. They don't seem to have a fireplace. Even if they did, I don't know if they could afford firewood. and, but they can't even really afford booze. But they decide to go away to to Withnail's uncle's home in the country, and his little cabin, and they are not prepared for it at all. And I think they say they're accidentally on holiday. Um, and, it's kind of hard to summarize because it's really just about this relationship between. It's a very I I I'd say it's a close but kind of toxic relationship between these two men, and Withnail plays, or he's this character who's a trained actor who feels like he deserves the world, and he should be famous. He should be a paid, well paid actor. He should be a celebrity, and every success for anybody else, even if it's for his friend, it's just not fair because it should be him. And his friend is, they're awfully close. They love each other in a way, but it's very unhealthy for the both of them, and they kind of keep each other back. Withnail definitely, like, a little more so, and it's it's, oh gosh, I'm just having this struggle like summarizing it, because it's more like I feel like a slice of life for them. And uh basically they come home after their adventures in their holiday, and they just kind of one of them realizes that this is not a healthy relationship, and that he's holding him back. He doesn't have his best interests in mind, and they're both he realizes they both have a problem with drugs and alcohol, and he just needs to let Withnail go and move on with his life and move forward. Oh, that was a horrible summary.
I just feel it's important to do a summary or a synopsis or give people a sense of things sometimes, because it's such a very niche, underappreciated, unheard of kind of film.
Yes.
It's so well made. It's absolutely hilarious. How does it make you feel when you watch it?
Honestly, and this sounds terrible, but it reminds me of living with my best friend Adrian. Because we lived together for a while in college, and we both met in a theater class. So we were trained actors reduced to reduced to the status of a bum. I felt that so deep, and we were drinking so much. This is college, so we drank a lot, and the way I put it, you have theater parties, you have college parties, and then you have your college theater parties, and
Oh,
those are
nice.
just next level. So, um, yeah, I may have done some drugs, but he did not. He was just all about the booze, and I feel like we kind of both took turns being with now. We loved each other a lot, and we still do, but we were also kind of bad for each other. We're not the greatest friends because we kept each other drunk. And if one of us came up with a bad idea, the other one would be like, that is fantastic, let's do that now. and, and I feel like there were some things that he did that weren't in my best interest, and vice versa. And there were some, I hate to admit it, but there were some moments where I was thinking like, well, he found success in blah blah blah. Why don't I have that? Why didn't I get soup? Feeling with that, I guess, that sense of entitlement and what's fair and what isn't. But I feel like I shouldn't say, that is our relationship to a T because we're still very good friends. We have a podcast together, and I feel like we're a positive influence for each other too. But just the misadventures that they go through, it just reminds me a lot of us, and I can still look back on this movie and look back on my experience living with Adrian and still remember fondly. Um, but I do have the friend who is very much like Uncle Monty, who unfortunately was drunk and always trying to make the moves on Adrian, and he was making us both uncomfortable. Even though Adrian is gay as well, unlike the character in the movie, still it was definitely unwelcome. And even during my wedding, Adrian was my best man, or my I called him my dude of honor, or my bitch of honor.
I like
I
that.
can't remember, but part of my wedding party was my Uncle Monty, basically. Unfortunately, he developed a problem with alcoholism, and he spent the whole night just being a lech, and just even though his fiance was there, he was basically just like molesting Adrian the whole night, and he almost like ruined my entire wedding. And so I feel responsible for my friend who ended up being my Uncle Monty, you know.
I was very lucky actually. I went to university with Richard E. Grant's daughter. We got to. I didn't know it to begin with, and eventually she kind of confided in me, and I basically said like I'm like a huge Richard E. Grant fan. This is really strange.
God,
I
yes.
listed all these films that I'd basically seen him in. I thought it was great. I'd actually done a project on him in school,
No
kind of
kidding.
years earlier, and she said, "What do you think of Withnail and I?" Immediately, like all the imagery conjured in my mind, and I said to myself, I don't think I must have been maybe 21 at the time. And I said, I don't actually think I've seen it like in the last decade. It maybe have been something that was on in the background, maybe when I was like my parents might have been watching it. I kind of watched along when I was actually quite young. I just couldn't think of what the story of With Nail I was. So I went away and I came back, and I watched it, and I said to her, loved it, absolutely loved it, hilarious, fantastic. And she came to me 2 days later and said, "Oh, I told my dad that you watched the film, and he said he's really, really glad you enjoyed it."
You're like, that's nice.
I was like, "Yeah, that's nice." And two weeks later, she called me and said, "Can you come over to where I am?" And I came over, and she said, "Just wait here a second." His car pulls in, and
Oh
Richard
my
E.
god.
Grant gets out.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and I spent the next
Oh
20
my god.
minutes in the presence of Richard E. Grant
Oh my god.
as we talked about everything. We talked about Withnail. We went and talked.
Oh,
We were studying in Norwich in England, and we went to talk to one of our kind of
oh,
tutors. It was a huge Richard E. Grant fan as well.
I am so jealous.
I basically wanted to tell you that story, not to do it like a mic drop, but I wanted to basically let you know that he is as charming, as
Yes.
caring, as warm, as wonderful as you could possibly hope for. And he is everything I wanted him to
Oh,
be and more. He was just incredibly kind, had all the time in the
yes.
world for me. We engaged in, conversation and stories and stuff like that. He was absolutely delightful to be around. And over the past that must have been like 2008 or 2009. And over the past 3 or 4 or 5 years, to see him be Oscar nominated, to be in Star Wars, to be in Game of Thrones, to be in a show that me and Lex watched early this year called Dispatches from Elsewhere,
Yes.
which is
Oh,
fucking
yeah.
phenomenal. To see him have this kind of, Matthew McConaughey had the reconnaissance. To see Richard E. Grant have a kind of grantessence, or whatever you want to call it, has been has been incredibly nice to watch, because he absolutely deserves it, and he's a really, really amazing guy. So I just want to inform you about that.
Thank you. Yeah, because he seems like one of those guys that are just genuinely charming and just so sweet, and like the genuine article. Because I know I saw his his video where is his reaction video to being nominated for the Oscar. And I was like, oh my God, I want him to win so badly just because he's so sweet. He's just this wonderful human being. And I think his daughter recorded his reaction.
I think she might have done, yeah.
Yeah, and he just seems like such a genuinely wonderful person. I remember one time he replied to one of my comments on Twitter, and I just about had a heart attack. It's like, I've been touched by God. I absolutely love him.
You picked some really, really fantastic choices.
Oh, it was a blast going through them again.
Okay, we've got 2 more things to do. We need to first hear about your book, because you get given a copy of Watchmen and you get given a copy of 1001 Films to Watch Before You Die. So you have to give us your 3rd book.
I really enjoyed Watchmen, so I'm happy that's there. But also, I love books, and so that was a hard choice. But I had to go with the first Ultimate Sandman, or Absolute Sandman collection. Because, I mean, it's really special to me because not only is Neil Gaiman amazing, and he's another one of those storytellers that is so talented, I kind of hate him a little bit. I love him and I hate him. And he's so humble. I remember somebody asking him about Harry Potter, saying, well, you kind of came up with the story first. And how do you feel about that? And he said, well, she just told the story better. And other people have come up with stories before mine, before Books of Magic. And it's almost every story has been told. It's just about how you tell it. And like, what kind of amazing person says that? Not like, well, yeah, obviously they stole my story. But no, he just goes on to say, no, it's an amazing story. And she should be proud. But with Sandman, it's my ex from college got me to read it. And before that, I had read the Good Omens. And I loved that, but it didn't really introduce me to Neil Gaiman. I feel like this is the one that really got me interested in his work. And not only that, but it's what got me back into comic books as an adult. Because I used to love comics when I was a kid, but this one, it let me know that there are comic stories that are okay for adults to read, and you're not gonna feel stupid. It's not a picture book. It's this amazing fairy tale, as only Neil Gaiman can tell these amazing fairy tales that are meant for all audiences. And he brought to life so many amazing characters in the Sandman series. And so I feel like it would have to be on my list. I have to take that. And if I could, I'd take the whole series with me. But if
I was a dick.
Yeah. But if you weren't a dick.
I think, if memory serves, well, I think you told me this, in episode 1 where I was kind of ironing out the kinks, I think Lex did he bring the whole collection?
Yeah.
So that's one of the kinks that I've unkinked. I apologise.
No worries, because I feel like the first is fine because it reminds me of a lot of things, and I can fill in the rest from there from memory. But I feel like he's just one of the best storytellers out there. And I got to meet him one time, and it was really like it was really a highlight in my life. Getting to hear him read in Seattle. He read a part of is the Ocean at the End of the Lane, and he was just so charming. And there were so many people, and we waited near the end of the line. We waited hours to get the chance to meet him and get him to sign some books. And you wouldn't know that it was so late. I think it was, I think like 1 a.m. And I mean, it was just crazy. And it was a weekday. And uh, he was still so charming to us and so nice. And I remember telling him, I want to thank you for reigniting that spark within me for storytelling and for experiencing these stories so deeply. And he took one of my hands in his and he said, "Thank you so much." And in my head I'm thinking, oh Jesus, he's touching me. And my brother and my husband were standing next to me and just laughing because they know I'm dying. And just to have this person be so lovely to me, this genius, who's just like the god of storytelling, be so humble and be so sweet to me was just, oh, that was big.
It's really nice to know that sometimes when you meet people, they live up to your expectations. And I'm really happy that you've had a really positive experience with Neil Gaiman. I feel like you need to tell Lex that story because obviously he chose the same book, well, books that you did, and I think he'd really appreciate hearing that story. I also think that when you told me it was fine that I said you could only take one book, I feel like I've heard women say to me before, "Yeah, it's fine." I feel like it's not fine. I feel like it's definitely not fine.
It's fine, whatever.
Yeah. Um, Gaiman came out with an amazing quote. Actually, he said, I think it was to people who are becoming writers. He said, when you first start out as a writer, you see like this big, huge cauldron of like stew or soup or whatever, and you basically ladle out some into your bowl, and it's the soup is what has come before. But he said as you kind of grow as a writer, and you discover your own voice, and you invent words, you invent new things. Instead of ladling something out, you might ladle out a little bit, but you might actually toss in a carrot, or you might toss in a
Ooh,
potato, and so that's the way stories work.
I
Passing
love
things on
that.
from generation. I know it's so fantastic. He talks in a very visual way, which I personally really appreciate, and I think that's kind of what you made me think of when you talked about the J.K. Rowling thing.
Yeah, Stephen King kind of said something similar where he was referring to it as like a well, and you must dip into the well. And it kind of makes me think of like Carl Jung and his theory of the collective unconscious and how we must all go to this well to dip for our stories. And it's up to you what you choose to include.
Okay, let's talk about your luxury item.
This is my third passion in life. Another one that my dad passed on to me. Uh, it's puzzles. I need like a ginormous stack of puzzles to solve. Not like jigsaw puzzles, but logic, arithmetic, word puzzles. I love them. And my dad taught me how to solve them when I was just a little kid, and now I'm a data analyst, which is really just finding like solving the puzzles, finding the answer, finding the story behind the data, and finding the trends, putting the pieces together, and coming up with your story. And so I have been addicted, especially lately. I just taught myself how to do what they call word arithmetic, and I cannot stop. And, um, I didn't get into Sudoku until I heard that Hugh Laurie was addicted. And so I thought, like, well, I need to check this out because before that, I would get the variety puzzle magazines and I would solve like the riddles, solve the puzzles. But I think it was a little late in my life that I really got into the number puzzles. But my dad taught me how to solve the logic problems and how to work out the word puzzles. And the logic puzzles actually have come in handy many times in my life. The logic puzzles lately for being a data analyst, I have to create this coding for my queries, and logic is a huge piece behind it. And you have to use logic and logic it out, see what you need, how you get it, and how you want to present it. And the logic problem actually, when I was in very long story short, when I was back in high school, I used to I barely got any sleep, so I fell asleep through many of my math classes. And we had so many students that we had to have some of our math classes taught by gym teachers and some coaches. And I thought, like, I know more math than this person probably does. Like, why am I going to stay up for a lecture from them? I can figure this out on my own. And one time I was waking up from a nap, and my coach teacher said to all of us, he gave us a logic problem, and he said, okay, if anybody could come up with the answer for this, then I'll give you a passing grade. I'll give you an A. And he was like, had this arrogant son of a bitch, like, attitude about it. Like, I know none of you guys are going to get it. So, try that. And I I worked it out. I lifted my head and I said, 16. And the teacher goes, wait, excuse me? And I said, it's 16. And he goes, well, come up here and work that out. And show us how you got the answer. So I drew out this logic graph, and I said, and thus you get 16. And I remember he got pissed off about it, actually, that I figured it out. And I had to hold him to his word of like passing me for the for the class. And he was so angry. He was just like, sit back down. So it was a very proud moment in my life that I feel like I would never have had if it hadn't been for my dad teaching me how to solve puzzles.
To make up for the Sandman amount of books you're allowed debacle.
Yes.
You're gonna be ankle deep in puzzles in Costco.
I'm gonna be making armor outfits out of them. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Well, Linda Castro, thank you so much. This has been an absolute delight. Thank you very much for sharing your Podcastaway choices with us. Once again, before we go, please tell us about the 2 podcasts that you are currently involved with.
Well, my first one was Cage's Kiss, and we talk about, obviously, Nicolas Cage, and we talk a lot about our favorite actors and movies. Sometimes we go off on a lot of movie history tangents. My best friend Adrian, who's one of my co-hosts, he knows way too much about movies and movie history, and he fills in so many silent moments because he just knows all this crazy stuff that he shouldn't know. That no human should know. And my brother is also my other co-host on there, and he's really, really funny, and I've always looked up to him and his comedic talents. We have a lot of fun on there. And then with one of my other best friends, besides my husband, I have Bedknobs and Broomflicks with my friend Jane. And we talk about witches in all types of media and our favorite familiars. So, yeah, you can find us just about anywhere where podcasts are.
Thank you so much for being a guest today. And
oh my gosh, thanks.
You. Oh, well, it's been great. I mean, and again, as I say to everybody, it's so nice to hear these stories that, electronic media are actually bringing people together. And it's nice to know that you're having some really good experiences. And it's nice to know that they're getting you through, not so nice experiences as well, and giving you fond memories.
Yes, definitely. And thank you so much for letting me blather on and for giving me an excuse to rewatch some of these things.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you very much for taking part, and thank you, dear listener, for tuning in. We're actually dropping 2 episodes of Podcastaway this August. So yeah, the next one will be, hopefully this will be out about the 4th. If you're listening to this and it's like the 15th, whoops. But hopefully this will be coming out in the first week of August. There'll be another one coming out the 3rd week of August. Thanks, and see you soon.